Okay. We're live, Charles.
That's great, Jason.
Oh, wait a minute now.
What?
So this is saying, oops, Telegram doesn't see any stream. Ah, there it is. So Charles, this is our first Sunday with Charles being simulcast streamed on Telegram.
That's pretty cool. And what other services are we simulcast on?
Well, we are on Rumble. We're on Odyssey.
We're getting ready to rumble.
We've got the Sunday with Charles YouTube channel.
Uh-huh.
We've got Crowdsource the Truth 7, Crowdsource the Truth 8. You want to go right in here?
One around.
Right, so we should tell everybody we're back in one of our usual spots, Washington Square Park, but there's like some kind of giant festival going on today.
Yeah, and it's, as it warms up, people immediately jump out into the sun. And where we used to have in the city this idea that shops would form and people would pay rent and taxes, and
right, that's all out the window.
now, here we have, look, this is a new dance troupe.
Some sort of a,
Appearing trying out for America's Got Talent or China's Got Talent.
Maybe this might be K-pop.
What's K-pop stand for? Korea?
It's like a, genre of Korean. Now wait a minute, are we live on Crowdsource the Truth 7? It doesn't seem to be. Huh. Well, that's disappointing. I hope I didn't screw that up. Well, we're live on Sunday with Charles. So
Good.
There we go. Let's keep walking. It's
All right.
remarkably hot. I didn't realize it was going to be. I should have worn shorts.
Well, before we abandon the fitting tribute to the art department, I think we have to say that this poster is just remarkably good.
Well, thank you.
And I hope you'll never reveal the secrets to how you put these together.
Oh, well, actually, I made a little tour of it because there's an Easter egg in there. You know, sometimes I do that, Charles.
Uh-huh.
This is based on the Hitchcock classic To Catch a Thief. And obviously, we're talking about John Durham. We're going to get into that today. The charity thieves, primarily Hillary and Bill. But I don't know if you can see this. We've got Joe Biden back there practicing the I can't see you, so you can't see me. Wow, this guy's really belting it.
Things that I am.
And here's a guy walking around with a big stick.
Unforgettable.
To your right.
Oh boy, that's not so good.
Thank you. Have a lovely weekend.
Can I pay
There's
you not
something-
to sing?
Sorry, say again?
Can I pay that guy not to sing? Anyway, look at this. I mean, all these stands here, you got weed stands and junk stands.
Yeah.
Nothing but guy coughing his lungs out here.
It's pathetic, Charles. And we saw two cops over there.
We'll do another whole circle.
Yeah, we basically were sitting on a bench in the shade, waiting to start the show. And there's some kind of
They're everywhere. They're multiplying.
disruption. Yeah, here we go. Typical collection of hooligans.
But it's about within sometime next week, I believe, Pride starts.
Look at this.
I know. This is the guy. You're not going to change his behavior. Pride comes down here, and at a certain point, at the low point of Pride, we'll come into the park, and the next day it'll be literally mountains of garbage, broken bottles, pizza boxes, food everywhere. It's just disgusting.
I think there's two cops in this whole entire park.
Right.
They're stationed in the corner over there, which I know you don't want to go over there because
I just
of
don't want to.
concerns that I will yell at them and tell them that they're wastes of time. But we just almost got urinated on by a dude,
Right.
and those cops are just sitting there hiding. And when I saw them, they were texting. They noticed me, and those two I've definitely seen before, so they put the phones away and just stood there doing nothing.
Yeah, and right now this is relatively tame. I mean, other than you didn't mention that the guy who took a leak in the bushes was about 25 feet away from the men's bathroom. I mean,
True.
Why you couldn't just walk in there
Urgency.
is a bit beyond me, but
I don't understand why this isn't playing on Crowdsource the Truth 7, but people can watch on the Sunday with Charles channel. So yeah, Odyssey,
we'll go maybe
Getter.
up that way. Yeah.
Rumble. And now,
A bike in the park.
yeah, they're everywhere. Oh, those cops vacated that spot. I guess they're done.
Done for the day. Well, the van is gone.
Oh,
Go up that
man.
way.
So now there's no cops. I think
Maybe they're
this is
responding to
lavender.
some sort of donut emergency.
Doubtful.
Donut emergency, not a real emergency.
Right.
Oh my God, the last jelly is almost gone. I gotta get that one. Gotta snarf it.
So Charles, there's been some really kind of like mysterious and maybe not surprising, but some pretty weird developments relative to the Clintons and the John Durham investigation. Where do we want to begin?
Well, I think let's begin with Radar Online.
Oh yeah.
And in my experience back, I used to, 40 years ago, delight the visitors to my, 39 years ago technically, delight the visitors to my first weekend house by always making sure that I had the Inquirer, the Star, the Globe, the Weekly World News. And I would be
Fine
reading.
literature.
Well, my work day consisted back then of reading, hundreds of pages of dense legal documents, and
Right.
they were really complicated, and try to solve math problems, and then get into strategy issues on a deal and this and that. And so I just found it as like a way to cleanse my mind, reading this really stupid shit. And so, so I would have it. I'd put 4 or 5 of them on the main table, and when I come
would
down,
steal 'em.
they'd be gone.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd all take them to their respective rooms, or the bathroom, or whatever. I never got a chance to read it. So
But those things have,
so we'll go down
Yeah.
and we'll go up.
they've broken some important stories
Exactly.
at times.
And they're very thorough. So I had
The
to.
Inquirer specifically.
Well, yeah, and what you find is that the people who work at one of those publications, they'll end up moving on to a related publication, or yet something not related. And
Wow.
What?
Is this guy selling weed or 8mm movies? 8mm, huh? Sorry, Charles.
It's okay. So I have, since 2016, 15, 16 timeframe, been in touch with a number of their people that have now contact me. And a number of weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago or so, they got all excited about this Mark Middleton.
Well, we should remind everybody who that is.
So Mark Middleton is a guy who's 59 years old, who was found in a farm in a makeshift gallows where there was a, go that way,
Sure.
where he was, he had an extension cord, cheap extension cord wrapped around his neck. He had been maybe on a folding card table or something, but for good measure, to make sure that he'd kill himself, he somehow managed to shoot basically through his chest, a big hole in his chest, which obviously he did not do.
Before or after he hung himself?
After he jumped up the stairs. But
It's just crazy.
so, it's just implausible. And now here, Mark Middleton, though, that what makes it interesting and sad, obviously, for him and his family, is that in the most recent, there's 3 stories in Radar Online. I forget the order of which this came, but just give the summary. An associate of Mark Middleton's, who knew him very well, has come forward to say that Mark Middleton didn't kill himself.
Anonymous, though,
Yeah,
for fear of
for fear of
retaliation.
getting Epstein, and he makes a few points, kind of like what I say with regarding Peter Smith.
Right.
That with regard to Middleton, he was somebody like me. I'm not good with my hands. I'm not, good building things or whatever, and it's just my
You're
father.
a brain guy.
Well, no, my father's really good at it. And it's intimidating. Go that way.
That sign just said no sound devices. I guess I have to get rid of this thing.
So, so anyway, the idea that he would have gone to this level of Rube Goldberg contraption
Right.
is ridiculous. And what was Mark Middleton's role? He was kind of a precursor to Doug Vann in the 91, 92, 93 time frame. The one thread that they haven't really connected well enough is that Mark Middleton was involved being on the board of and raising money for the Clinton Birthplace Foundation, which came together I want to say in July of 1990, way before Bill Clinton announced for office. I think even if it was in 91, it would still be before Bill Clinton announced his ultimately successful campaign for president. So Middleton was involved early on at a time when there were a lot of Clinton scandals to cover up. And so he was out there shaking the money trees around the country. And after Bill got elected, Middleton also went over to Asia to shake the Asian money tree. So he would have known a lot of the dirt of how the Clinton Birthplace Foundation,
Chinagate,
and then after that, he also was involved raising money for the Clinton Presidential
Library.
Love Shack.
Which is that?
The library.
Yeah.
Presidential Love Shack. You know,
the roof
penthouse
deck.
and Love Shack. So anyway, this is the first guy. Another suspicious test, that guy. Then another Radar Online article about a woman, a former model who was 60, who is found in the Arkansas River, I think, or in a river near Little Rock.
She was swimming with a cinder block.
Yeah, she's really into weight training.
Yeah.
I think what I'll do is I'll see how long I can paddle with a cement monstrosity. Again, with a construction cord or some kind of cord.
Yeah, no, they said that she's shopping for extension cords at the same store. It was the same type of extension cord.
Right. So here's this guy saying,
This guy's not even looking as he's riding a bicycle on the
I think that's the
sidewalk.
definition of non-compos dementis, or whatever. Anyway, so another suspicion that she was involved as well with Middleton in various matters. Then they link in the story the fact that John Glasgow, and I've asked them to corroborate this. I did not know the specifics of what they put in there. The Radar Online story claims that John Glasgow he had concerns and questioned the accounting or the math put forward on the Clinton presidential.
Which you anticipated.
Which exactly. What? Art of the Dream, 33?
Yes. Anyway,
Maybe, is this the artist here?
I don't know. Is that your work? Oh, that's even better. That's way better than Hunter Biden. 500,000 each, right? Sorry, Charles. So
It's okay. So here are 3 Radar Online stories, and the way they tend to work is they do actual journalism. They go to sources, and they try to get quotes from those sources. I go to publicly available sources, and I've appreciated since the beginning of this project that even if I could get a chance, which I don't want, to sit down with a Bill, a Hillary, or a Chelsea, I have it's not a law, but it's a rule. If you're going to lie under oath,
Yeah,
get
they're not
caught
gonna
for
tell
it,
you the truth.
Well, there's no point in talking to such a person or listening to them.
right.
The person has multiple times lied under oath and suffered very serious penalties. Actually, let's go on the other side.
Well, yeah, it's too hot, but I would modify that a little bit, Charles. I think there is a point in talking to them because sometimes I like to interview people who I know are liars just to observe their responses.
Right, but you're on a different mission. I'm just saying, in my case, I'm trying to lay out what really happened with the Clinton Foundation, and I know I'm not going to get the truth from Bill, Hillary, or Chelsea because they've been lying their entire lives. So the Glasgow thing is interesting. The fact that it's in Radar Online is interesting.
Do people remember who John Glasgow is? He was the chief financial officer for the construction company who looked into it, then disappeared for years, and his head was found separated from his body 8 years later.
With an antique hunting rifle next to his corpse.
Wow.
Does that sound familiar? Antique
Sounds
gun
like
next to
Vince Foster.
Right. So, for me, the interesting pieces are the following. When you are a publicly traded company, or a division of a publicly traded company, which CDI was, Clark Dillard
Dillard's.
Inc.
Oh.
Yeah, Clark Dillard Inc., the joint venture. Glasgow was the CFO of that joint venture. Now, being the CFO of a joint venture is a prescription to dissatisfy everybody, right? You've got a 50-50 players. Let's stop for a second because it's awfully loud. It's okay.
The second one was.
Gonna switch to wide angle.
And now they, and now they of course quiet down. Anyway, so if you're in that position, you to do a good job and keep your job, you got to play straight down the middle. You can't favor one person over another. And so now you take the project, you get the project of building the Clinton Presidential Center, which was at the time by far the biggest construction project in Little Rock. So everybody was noticing it, and the way that construction industry works, I know from having followed it really since I started in business, did a few deals in the area. There are a lot of these, like you would have in filmmaking, there are a lot of technical journals. Engineering News Record is one, for example, and there are regional journals and associations, and so they all talk about, the significance of this project, and they're actually, I've seen papers written about, the way it was.
Because there's going to be innovative techniques being used and materials and things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a long thing about the hanging garden of Babylon on top of the
Well,
right? And it's LEED certified.
What's our buddy's name? Who's Stewart? Dean? Didn't he write a whole thing about that?
Right. And so with Glasgow, what you care about typically in a construction contract, you bid with a very tight margin, and you hope that the client will change his or her mind about what they want over time, and you have them over the barrel on the change order.
Right.
So you tend to make your money on the back end.
Overages.
Sam, scoot over and make room for the little boy.
And so Glasgow would have been the one sending the bills out from CDI, and as a CPA, he would obviously know how to, a competent CPA, he would know he'd want to see evidence that the Clinton Foundation was solvent and could pay the bill. Because you don't want to go and say, well, I'm going to put up $165 million.
We don't have the money.
I have a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll sell a few bites of the cheeseburger. More often than not, you have to also post a bond.
Right.
That is to say, the construction company has to post a bond, and you want to be sure that if something happens, if the client goes out of business or whatever, you're not left holding the bag. So he would have been studying a lot of correspondence back and forth. There are a lot of bills in connection with this matter, monthly bills probably, and there are a lot of subcontracts, and he would have seen all that stuff. So, as Chris Wallace would say, question. How come the Clinton Foundation prepared its books, its financial books and records, using the modified cash basis of accounting, which is not allowed inside the United States of America, through and after the opening date where the Clinton Foundation building was, in theory, finished? And how did John Glasgow say, well, this is okay, why don't you use accounting standards that are used in Zimbabwe? Arkansas is kind of the same, just kidding now. And so Glasgow would have then seen, he probably was fighting back and forth and saying, look, I want to see how you guys are saying that you're valuing the center in your own books.
Right.
Because I want to figure out, how to charge you at the end. And so,
I'm feeling like it's maybe too many questions.
Right. Well, the issue is, of course, that whenever you can identify what is the most important financial issue in a company, and that issue is not covered in the audit,
that's a problem.
It tends to be a problem.
Yeah. Hey, don't worry about that.
Don't worry about the movie you commissioned. You're not going to remember the whole movie. You set it for the teaser.
Remember, they have an IMAX theater in there that was playing some dinosaur movie. What the hell does that have to do with the presidency?
It was a movie about Hillary.
Because he knew
Good point.
That's good. Maybe it's better than what he can cook.
Dinosaur. But anyway, what I'm talking about is when let's say you undertake a contract with somebody.
Is that guy just giving me the finger?
I don't know. But oftentimes people put their hand up like that. They don't mean it's a finger. But anyway, when you have a construction project in progress, the entry on the balance sheet is construction in progress. And that typically should be the amount that you spent plus, less if it's appropriate, a reserve. So let's say you contracted and for something to be 100 million or 85 million, and you've paid bills of 150, and somebody comes along and says, there's no way we can say, we're a real accounting firm, we're not BKD, there's no way we're going to just accept 150 as the right cost. You better take a reserve now, because it's you basically, you can't treat this as a capitalized expense. It's a loss.
Okay.
And so when you get to the installation of the building, when you complete it, you typically hire one or more independent experts.
Engineer to check out that it's
Well,
built
more
right.
than an engineer, engineer and all that for the certificate of occupancy. Hey,
Dude,
see ya. Let's go.
here, follow us into the traffic, shithead.
Jason, I don't want to get involved with this guy.
Well, I want him to get hit by a car.
I know, but he's
which I almost succeeded at.
right.
That's the guy who gave me the
He's
finger.
drunk.
I understand that. Easier to hit him on the head with the sound recorder.
I don't want to do that, Jason. But anyway, is he still following us?
No. So anyway,
So you hire this independent
reserve.
expert, and they will say, well, you spent 155, 165 million on the thing, but we tell you, looking at comparables, it's not him. And for a whole bunch of other reasons, we're Dillon Reed, we're Price Waterhouse, whoever it is, we say that the cost of this thing, the fair value, is 102,750,000 or whatever the number is, and we'll allocate it. So much for the building, so much for machinery, so much for this, so much for that. Let's stay in the shade.
sure. But you don't want to go in the park? Okay.
We can if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be shady up in there.
So that was weird. Huh?
Well, I mean, he definitely gave me the finger
And then followed us.
and got right in there.
Right.
Oh, look, that's nice horticulture, Charles.
Yeah, we had those things all over our property. I just didn't know what they were. Anyway,
The reserve, the expert comes to look at it.
And oftentimes what happens, you can structure incentives with the contractor. You can say, I want this to be 165, and I'll give you a bonus if you get the thing done and it's only 145, and the bonus will be some percentage of the savings. There's all sorts there are all sorts of reasons why a guy like John Glasgow would definitely want to know the value that the Clinton Foundation assigned to the center as of December 31st, 2004. And
He's a regular accountant.
Right, and so the first time you get to see that is for books and records that are manifestly, fiction, dated June 30th, 2005. So by the time he sees that, he's probably saying, "No, wait a minute, this is wrong." And so a struggle ensues.
Like, hey, Charles, could you go to Home Depot and grab an extension cord?
Right, a struggle ensues between John Glasgow and likely the Clinton Foundation, and it gets more interesting. So they make a decision, Clinton Foundation, to encourage Heifer,
Right.
Project Heifer International,
right.
to erect its headquarters as a subtenant of the Clinton
Yeah,
Foundation.
like right next to it.
No, within the Clinton Foundation
Right,
grounds,
on the land.
using the same contractor, CDI, and whose books and records are audited by the same accounting firm,
So why did they do
BKD.
that?
I don't know, but the point is, if you're looking for comparables, you could say, how come the Project Heifer International headquarters building came in and call it 35 million, and it's bigger and significant, whereas the Clinton Foundation is, you say it's 165 million.
Yeah.
Explain that, and you got the same accountants and the same contractors,
Construction company.
right? And so, and in Glasgow, also within CDI, you have somebody above Glasgow, I think, who was either a director of CDI or director of Dillard's, who had been a partner at BKD.
Oh,
Right. So, you definitely would be. This would be
isn't
like
that weird?
Well, it's a small town, so everybody's.
BKD originates in Arkansas?
They were the biggest accounting firm in Arkansas.
Okay.
They originated as they say, Missouri.
Right.
But, so anyway, definitely by June 30th, 2005, if not sooner, Glasgow would have been saying, now wait a minute, this financial statement bears no reality to the bills that I've been sending you and the payments that you've made to me. Where do you get off putting this number in here? And if you were halfway good, let's go in the shade.
That wasn't as shady as I hoped it would.
Right. If he were halfway decent as an accountant, and I'm not an accountant. I mean, I've had a lot of experience with tough financial statements, but I'm not an accountant. Anyway, careful. He would have looked. And this used to be the Union Square Cafe?
Blue Water Grill. I loved this restaurant.
No, before that, it was something else.
Well, Union Square Cafe was over there. Before it was Blue Water Grill, it was closed. It was a bank or something. It was closed for a long time.
So, so he would have been asking some tough questions. He would have been asking some tough questions. And those questions would have gotten even tougher if he started to look into legal filings.
Right.
Because, if you're going to send a bill to a corporation, then if a payment comes from a corporation with a different name,
you're going to be a little bit confused.
More than that. I mean, you're a subsidiary of a publicly traded company. That's exactly how you steal money. And so what I've been doing the last several days is focusing on this April 25th, 2005 through the November 2006 election period to see what was going on. So, of course, in theory, on April 19th, 2005, I think, the Louis Pasteur Institute.
Oh, yes.
And we'll get into that in a second, gave an award to Bill Clinton for the work that, quote, his foundation was doing fighting HIV and AIDS.
Right.
But he and his foundation had no legal authority to do any of that. And a few days after that, on the 25th, according to records that are in Arkansas, which I now think definitely were
doctored?
Forged. Yeah.
Forged.
I think they have the ability to go into that Secretary of State record and nudge, and change the dates.
Well, they probably control someone in that office. I mean,
Right.
They had Arkansas pretty locked down. No?
I'm just saying, whatever the mechanism is that they use to date and timestamp,
They know how to game it.
I think they can game it. And the reason I say that is they claim, and on the Arkansas Secretary of State site, and I have multiple official transmissions from them confirming that the name, we got the light.
Yeah, it was the cops. You never know what they might do.
Yeah. The official transmission says that at 2:20 p.m., April 28th, 2005, the Secretary of State lodged a certificate of amendment that said the name had been changed. Right now, that, as we've been through ad nauseum, that name change was not didn't come with what you need. You need a conformed copy of the Articles of Incorporation. That means that you would make the change. In this case, in Article 1, and then the people making the change would have had, or should have had, the presence of mind to go in and say, wait a minute, if we made this change in Article 1, we've got to change all these other articles. And
that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. So that's April 25th. And what they claim they did is they changed the name of the entity from the William, they claim they changed the name of the entity from the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation to the William J. Clinton Foundation. Now, that change alone, deleting presidential, is deceptive.
Of course.
Because it makes it seem like this foundation now is, whatever Bill wants to do, that's what it is. And
because presidential ties it to the library.
Right.
Now it's the Bill Clinton Do Whatever Foundation.
And there are multiple speeches and press releases and whatever where Bill had been seeding the public with the idea that this foundation, including a book, the paperback edition of the book, which comes out May 31st, 2005, basically says, Joe Clinton, created my library in Arkansas, and shortly after leaving the White House, my foundation in New York. None of that is true, right? He wasn't associated in the legal paperwork with the Presidential Library until 2009 with the aborted Clinton Global Initiative and the aborted Clinton Health Access Initiative attempts to file. And that's with the Presidential Library. And as far as the foundation is concerned, in New York, no foundation was established in New York at any time lawfully. So these are the type of things that Glasgow would have noticed, and on top of which, you then say, all right, if you're going to raise money in New York, is there a law that says that you have to, I think you know about this, that you have, before you solicit, you have to register truthfully?
Like,
and I
what's
checked.
the law?
Exactly. What's is?
Yeah.
But I would like to spend, how old are you? I'd like to spend the next 100 years debating whether white is really white or black. You know, is it racist to say that white is white and black? Anyway, so New York law requires you, before you register, to provide, in the first instance, as you register, to provide articles of incorporation in the case of the Clinton Foundation and bylaws. And then I slightly misspoke on the last broadcast. It's not that you have to, within 30 days of a materially adverse change, communicate that change.
It's any change.
It's any change,
Yeah.
exactly, within 30 days. And so if it were true that they did in fact change the name of the entity on April 25th, 2005, they should have given notice in writing, under penalties of perjury, according to the statute, that they did that and it was truthfully done. And they didn't do that. In fact, not only did they not do that, they didn't even bother to register in New York at all. You know, at this time where Bill's, the year he's doing the first Clinton Global Initiative, the year he announces the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, the year he says he's going to fundraise for Bush Clinton Katrina Fund. All that stuff, all that work was done out in New York, where nobody bothered to register with the Secretary of State or to make truthful filings in New York. And I bring all this up to say that, to compare it to Trump, I mean, Letitia James wrote, actually a pretty good summary made a pretty good summary in her complaint, or in the New York Attorney General's
summary of what they had done wrong?
Yeah, explaining that.
So she obviously knows how the law works.
And she's applied it against Trump, and she's applied it against BLM.
But it's not Clinton's.
Yeah, because what the Clintons like to do is they're in the virtue signaling and stealing business.
Right.
So you get attention by saying, I'm going to lower the
pharmaceutical
seas,
drug.
lower the seas worldwide, arrest climate change. At night as I sleep, and when I wake up in the morning, I'll cure cancer. And for that, give me all your money.
Oh.
And then they send the money towards the foundation, but there are multiple entities. So then you start checking in various states, and this is where you see this is our whole Harry Potter museum here. This is where you see that it really is a systematic grift. So what they do is, when they register with New Hampshire after April 25th, 2005, they use the old name as the name William J. Clinton, a variant of the old name, William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. They keep that name as the name they're using to solicit funds in New Hampshire. They keep that name.
They should have called it Omicron. Better variant.
Right. But the point is, in this time frame, Hillary Clinton's running for re-election in the Senate.
Right.
She needs cash. She announces November 18th, 2004. The Clinton-Bush Katrina grift, they still haven't accounted for lots of money that was sent towards the grift. And the paperwork is in horrifically bad shape. What?
Someone says Nancy Pelosi's husband was arrested for DUI. Is that true? Sorry.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, so
So the
on
systematic grift.
on the way to church. So to give you an example of this, one trick. I mean, very few people. We'll go Broadway. Very few people forget their 5-digit zip code.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's like you might not know the 9-digit,
Or your phone number.
right. So that what they do is they use the same address. You know, I think it's what is it? Oh, Post Office Box 1104.
They love
In one
post office
filing,
boxes.
which is you're not supposed to do that. It's really bad to use a post office box for fraud. But
because why? Because it's federal?
each piece of mail, each solicitation, if you're using an incorrect, there's an actual statute on it, and the penalty per offense is big. So if you send
why
out,
are they so fearless of this?
well, let me paint the picture, and then we'll discuss the frame. So they use Post Office Box 1104. William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation is the name of the entity. Zip code 72201. And then they, in a different state, they use the same name, same address as zip code 72203. So I believe or suspect that what they're in the business of doing back then is creating bank accounts. The more the merrier.
Right.
And let's just go over here for a second. The guy was just like cramping my style. And so if you have, you know, if you're representing the President of the United States, the former President of the United States, and you have, you know, you go into Bank of America and you're dealing with the private bank or the president of the bank or whatever, and you say, look, Hillary's got a campaign coming up, and
Right.
we need, we're trying to figure out what's the best bank to use.
They're going to be
competing
falling for your business.
Falling all over themselves to get the business.
It's also an excellent opportunity for social engineering, Charles, because when somebody is starstruck like that,
Right.
they're prone to believe, you know, you have them kind of
Right.
on the
Exactly.
back foot.
Exactly. So in this important time frame where Hillary's trying to get reelected, where there's a game afoot to get her to be president of the United States in 2007-8, she's the leading contender. She must be reelected. She has, you know, a weak opposition. She's facing. She knew she would win the Democratic primary, and as always, they field a weak Republican. So she had to get through the November 2006 election, and then she promptly lays a marker down January 20th, 2007, saying, "I'm
The
an
cattle futures.
No, I'm running for president to kind of make sure everybody else doesn't get in."
Oh,
Unfortunately for her, Barack Obama says, "Fuck that," and he announces, I think, in February.
see, that's got to be some competing
Oh yeah.
camp. putting
Well,
him-
and I've told you before, Daniel Halper, who is a journalist and a good author, in his book Clinton Inc., he explains that what the Team Clinton did is,
well, we got a little minefield here.
was AOC here? Or
Did
the
she
Green
not
New Deal?
clean up after her dog?
The Green New Deal. What the Clinton emissaries, the Clintons themselves did, is they went around to likely donors, according to Halper in his book, and he cites multiple times in his book, according to a source who refused to be named, you know, out of fear.
Right.
Multiple of these sources said that the Clinton emissaries basically threatened the Democrats and said, "We're going to win. We're going to know the people who are for us and the people who oppose us, and we're going to kick the people who oppose us into oblivion." Not threatening physical harm, just saying you're going to be cut off
Politically right.
from the power structure. And that's something that is even, there's a book called Her Way, which talks about that. They had a 7-point grading system. I think 1 was top of the list and 7 was you're in hell. And they would think about the people who they had helped along their long careers get into different offices. And then this is after Barack Obama is the nominee. They graded these people, and if you're a 7, you know, you're on the Clinton shit list. So this is the kind of behavior that, you know, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just
written about.
It's written about. Well, that doesn't make it right either because we got the Clinton books. But Anyway, so I think part of the real grift here, going back to the Pasteur Institute, was in France they knew there was an election coming up in 2007. And in Europe, the election season is short and public money finances elections.
That seems like probably a better idea.
I don't know. I think they corrupt that too, but
That's true.
it's better. It's certainly better than allowing a candidate to spend $1 billion.
Right.
So, we also know that with regard to the Global Fund, one of the, a pre-COVIDian grand plan for grift. What happens is Bush.
Whoa!
What?
That was just a huge drop.
Careful. Bush wins, or as Hillary likes to say, is selected, and right away, all of the the globalists get together and say, well, okay, he's not legitimate and we don't like it,
How
but
come she can say that about every election and we can't say it about one?
Try to stop me. So anyway, so one thing that they immediately jump on is this whole idea of raising a big slush fund to fight HIV and AIDS. And that is remarkably successful. I mean, they announced that it was too big to stop. We've got to do it right away. And the Global Fund, let me just, if I can, the Global Fund comes together in January of 2002. And it has, right away, billions of dollars are committed towards this thing, and they can't spend the money in 2002 because there are no counterparties to work with. The governments where they want to send the money don't have the health infrastructure to deal with the AIDS problem. So what do? You find a crooked, leaky organization. And so that's what the Clinton Foundation became. It was it's never been a real organization. That means separate and apart from its creators. It has an independent status, and you think twice about using it for your personal benefit or for political gain, because it has a rigorous board, it has control systems. People object when you try to reach in. That's a real organization.
But it doesn't have that.
No, of course, it's Bill's personal piggy bank, Bill and Hillary's little...
Well, that's why everybody always refers to it as a slush fund for grifters, but the amount of detail that you've put on it is quite useful.
Right, so we know in the case of the Global Fund, hue and cry for that, and they get money, but they can't put it to work. So the idea of having another slush fund, United, come together makes even less sense until you think about it. And you say, these French politicians, they don't make that much money.
Right.
And if you create a new slush fund and you put a guy in charge of it who might look the other way, and you find a Bill Clinton.
That's Sarkozy, right?
Deuce Blasey.
Oh, right.
You put him in charge of it, and he'll play along, because maybe he has some personal issues he wants to hide.
Monsieur Deuce Blasey.
Right, and his husband, he's married, but apparently he dallies.
Oh.
So anyway, and also Jacques Chirac is retiring, and he liked to live well, right? So you get together.
Was he a military guy, Chirac?
No, I think he was a champion polyamorous dude. He had many mistresses and at least one child out of wedlock, and his level of activity was shocking even to the French. So here you have Chirac out, and you have a close circle saying, why don't we have France and others lead a project to take billions of dollars and put it in a Geneva-based, let's go over here, just over here,
Sure.
Geneva-based slush fund, and just stop for a second. That guy was right behind me.
And then he turned around the second we did.
Right, that's why. So
Weird.
My suspicion is that elements in the French government wanted to guide this money to the Clintons because they knew the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative was porous.
I had a way to get it to them.
Get it back to them, either to finance Sarkozy's political campaign or
And they
personal
take their
endeavor,
cut.
whatever. So I think a lot more needs to be looked at that. And then at first, because I'm still, even though I'm at this now 6-7 years, I still hear a name like Louis Pasteur Institute, and I say, my God, my father did his postgraduate work at the Bohr Institute in Copenhagen, and
Maybe that's a fraud too.
no. Maybe, but I don't think so. But this one, the Louis Pasteur Institute, I was shocked because I thought he was, this god, up there with what's the guy's name?
Salk?
Schweitzer, Albert Schweitzer.
Okay, yeah.
The guy who went to Africa with the hospital and all that. But no, when you apply Ortel's first law,
Yeah, no,
the
people
name.
know about that. Yeah.
right away you come back and the guy, he said, my findings are revolutionary. You just can't check them until 70 years after I'm dead.
Because it would be disinformation if you questioned.
Right, and so after the time, it took a long time. Somebody from Princeton did check it all,
And it was wrong.
and it was completely wrong. And there's a huge scandal about it. So I hear.
When did that checking happen?
I don't know precisely, Jason, but maybe we'll.
But a year ago or like the
within
50s?
the last 10 or 15 years.
Uh-huh.
So, but the point is, the French, some of the smartest scientific minds in history have come out of France. And so you get, let's say Pasteur was a crook, but you get something that says the Louis Pasteur Institute exists in France and there's a branch of it here in New York.
People are impressed.
Yeah, and Clinton's getting a prize for this, for his work on fighting HIV and AIDS. That assumes that the work must be legitimate and the charity must be, and the French must have checked this. But when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. It's just, you can't assume that. I'm going to have to take a look at the Louis Pasteur filings here in New York.
Hold on.
What is going on here?
We don't need to look at this.
Around your toe and back.
It's weird.
Yeah, somebody bending over and,
It's a sock installation tutorial.
well, I think it was a sweat draining tutorial.
Whatever's going
I don't
on.
know, it's just not something
We're getting too involved in it already.
exactly. So, so that happens. That prize is given to Clinton, I think 6 days before he says, you know what? Now that I got the prize, I'll change the name of the foundation. Then I did check, and when you started out, again 42 years ago, in the merger business, one of the things that you got to do was before the closing of any transaction, you have often what's called a pre-closing, a day before, and if need be a week before if it's complicated. And what you do is you get all the documents there.
Dot the I's.
Well, you read everything, and you're there with as many lawyers and helpers as possible, and you check and make sure. A standard trick in a legal agreement is to make a reference to something that's an exhibit and have the exhibit be blank, and that's wrong. That's bad. And so you have to read it very, very carefully.
And it's complicated and difficult to get through such a dense document.
And what they do is they turn around, and at least at Dillon Reed, what they used to do is we had the budget. So after every deal, they would take all those documents and put them in these lawyers, what are called bound volumes, which are hardback, really fancy, oversized books. And for a big deal. Let's go, sir.
She's about to punch her.
I know, but I don't want to get involved because you get involved in a second and then they're both hitting you.
I'm not going to get involved.
Good. But anyway, so a typical bound volume and a big deal could be, there could be 5 of them.
Yeah.
So it takes up a lot.
Boxes of them.
And over time, if you're in the industry, you get more and more of them. And you put them up on a shelf in your office, and everybody says, "Oh, he's done a lot of deals. Look at all his bound volumes, all these mementos." It's kind of like I don't know what the equivalent would be. Maybe movie posters.
Posters in
the movie business.
conference room.
Frame posters
that
and
we
signs.
worked on. Yeah.
So
They're in the storage bin downstairs now.
really,
Should take Spider-Man and X-Men and
were they
stuff like
signed?
that.
But anyway,
By me.
Let me just the idea.
binders.
Well, so the idea that you would have this office in Harlem with pictures of Bill Clinton with world leaders and probably other kinds of pictures with Jeffrey Epstein that are not
Barbra
generally
Streisand.
accepted. Yeah. right, in his underwear collection. But you had that all in an office, and you'd be having press conferences, which they have a press office, or at least they have an archive, which they can't take down now because it's on the Wayback Machine.
Right. I think they can change things on there, though.
All right, well, they could try, but I think I've got a lot of them copied already. So many announcements, which typically read something like this. Today, Bill Clinton and the Prime Minister of Norway announced a 5-year, $25 million deal to where Norway will finance, buying test kits and HIV/AIDS medicine for children, in 3 countries in Africa or something like that. And it's dated. In that particular announcement, there's one in 2005 in New York, where there was no registered office in Harlem for the Clinton Foundation.
Wow.
And in fact, at that time, there were no bylaws for the Clinton Foundation. There was no articles of incorporation, nothing.
They're brazen.
Right. And it's the answer. What people always say is, well, how was I to know? That's not the standard of good governance. You have to exercise tight control over a foundation. And the rules are for a foundation, an American foundation operating internationally, can only do so if it maintains tight control from a U.S. base over its international operations. By that, you should have, governance protocols. You should have records. You should have regular diligence. You should have reports. So, I said I would do this, and I did that, and we're going to fire people. There's none of that.
Well, also, anytime anybody ever uses the "hey, I didn't know" defense, they get yelled at by the judge, and it says that that doesn't matter that you didn't know.
Right. Well, but in particular, it's you can try that. I'm just from Arkansas, and here I am in New York. How am I supposed to know? That you can try that, but when you're operating in the guise of a public charity, and you're handing out tax benefits that cost governments money,
right?
You can't be that blasé about it. You can't be that deuce blasé.
That deuce blasé, exactly.
Right. So, and then the other thing is that when I've had to do this. You do it legitimately.
This is the bank, isn't it?
Right.
This is the 33rd Street.
Let's get around.
Harry, get out of here now. Get out of here.
I don't really know what's going on right there.
Different people competing for the honor of begging. So when you're crowdsource the truth, or you're let's call it, pick a name, Newport Value Partners or Drexel Burnham, you just pick a name, and you want to start doing business in England, you better understand the laws in England.
Right.
You can't just show up and say, I'm Drexel Burnham and I'm going to do all this work, but I'm not going to bother registering in the UK or complying with laws. If you want to have protection, insulate yourself from potential legal liability, you better set up a subsidiary in the country, and you better comply with local law.
Yeah.
And you better, ideally hire a law firm to make sure that, you're interpreting this properly. And when it comes time to being a charity, let's wait here and rest for a second. When it comes time to be a charity, you have to be aware that the grift business, which is the charity business in poor countries, is one where the potential beneficiaries of the grift understand what you're doing. You're walking into their country, a desperately poor country, and saying, I don't need my money. And so the people in the country say, well, no, I think I'll take some of your money.
As a sucker.
Yeah, and so unlike many places in America, in many countries, you can have to, like in India, you have to register at federal level, you have to register at province level or whatever they call it, you may have to register in a city, you may have to register with this department and a different department if you're in healthcare, and these local inspectors have the ability to change the rules on a whim, and they're just walking into your office to create a problem, so you give them a bribe. That when they see that works, they come in again and again and again. So, if you're gonna virtue signal and not be in the grift business, what you should be doing before you decide, as they did do, the first country that decided to help with HIV and AIDS was the Bahamas.
Did they have an HIV and AIDS problem?
There was a small HIV and AIDS problem, but it's a place that I just, out of good fortune, and I know Biden has gotten in trouble again for his ridiculous
Stupid
comments where he said that he's been to Iraq and Afghanistan 38 or 40 times, and the real number is 21. And at the risk of at the risk of sounding like Biden, and I'm not bragging, just because I've been around a while and I have good friends in the Bahamas, I've probably been to the Bahamas
100 times.
I don't know about 100, but maybe 50. And I've also been to Africa, all over Africa, and many poor countries. And the Bahamas, while it's
fancy.
Exactly, as is most of the Caribbean. In a GDP per capita basis, very few
casinos and tourism and stuff.
Well, a lot of rich people from Europe who want to, have a second home or
golf clubs and things.
Right, Sean Connery, etc.
Yeah,
it's
better in the Bahamas.
Yeah, and it is. It's been like that for a long time. In fact, the Bahamas was, a refuge for rich, dissolute English people going way back. Prior to that, actually, in 18 or 19, one of my ancestors, Captain Harry Beverly, was asked to go to the Bahamas and deal with a pirate problem.
Wow.
And he got apprehended by Spaniards.
Your relative did?
Yeah.
Wow. Did they name the hills after him?
No.
Oh.
He was the son of Major General Robert Beverly, who you can Google it. It's Ley. Really interesting people, actually. They had a bit of land.
Yeah.
And other property. But anyway, so if you're going to go to the Bahamas, you would have thought by 2002, and if you're this genius Yale Law School Rhodes Scholar guy, Attorney General, Governor, former President.
Right.
Technically, the President is the top legal officer of the land.
Right.
Because the Attorney General reports to him. You would have thought that somebody in the New York office that was never registered might have said, "Hey, boss, I'm Doug Van. I went to law school at night. I could check and see."
Did he graduate?
Yeah, he apparently. Probably like Biden at the bottom of his class, for all we know. But you before you decide to part with money that should be used to build a center in Little Rock, you would check the local laws, and they would say, listen, in the Bahamas, there's two types of charities. There's a charity that is supposed to it takes money and is only supposed to be used for domestic charitable activities. And then there's another kind that takes money and can be used for international charitable activities. And of course, I think that the kind they created was the wrong kind.
Of course.
And they didn't explain that they'd done that in 2002. And it really is a fairy tale story told by Joe Conason, told by Clinton himself, that, it was Ira Magaziner's genius move. He figured out that the HIV/AIDS medicine was being distributed inside the Bahamas by multiple layers of distributors, and that the retail cost was, let's say $2,000. The price from
It's cutting out the middleman.
Well, the two middlemen. So,
But that sounds like a stupid way to try to trick people into thinking you've come up with some innovative idea that's not.
And that's Ira Magaziner. And so what they don't tell you in these, these glory-thon books is that the supplier was Ranbaxy.
Yeah, right.
And the reason they were happy to do that is that Ranbaxy was trying to build its international presence, and they were delighted to be working with Bill Clinton and Rajat Gupta and all that. So from day one, the first step outside of Little Rock was technically to Washington, D.C. They were running this supposed nonprofit from the White House.
Wow.
Which you can't do.
Of course not.
In Washington, D.C., if you want to have a charity, you've got to register it. And of course,
how can the president run a charity while he's president?
You're not supposed to. But that's what in McAuliffe's book, and a lot of other books, they talk about, the president asked me to the White House in early 1998 and asked if I would raise the money for the library in the Oval Office. So I said, of course, boss. You know, how much do you want? We'll get this done. In so many words. I mean, it's a published book.
Well, I mean, when you're in the Oval Office and the President of the United States asks you to do something and it's not like, hey, go murder that person, you probably figure it must be okay. Even Nixon said the president can't break the law. If the president does it,
that's not right.
It's well, that's what he said.
For him. It worked well for him.
I mean, that was the delusional thought that he had.
Right, I know.
I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Clinton shares similar, or other people.
I mean, that's an ancient impulse. I mean, it goes as far back into recorded history as
Do
we know.
whatever the king says.
L'état c'est moi, I am the state.
Yeah.
You know, in France, but you know, probably going back to Roman emperors and before.
Right.
You know.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely, I guess, is what that's all about.
Right. And so anyway, the other thing, of course, is that in the application for tax exemption, which is supposed to precisely state what you're going to do, they did not tick the boxes that said, we're going to do international work. They didn't describe it. They said all the work is going to be done in Little Rock. And in the tax forms along the way, it clearly states, you know, if you're going to change the activities, not the purposes, the activities, what you're doing are different than is stated in the application, you've got to explain how you change them. Of course, they didn't do that, and they never.
Isn't there also a process from when you say we're going to change?
Right.
That they have to say okay, and then you do it.
Right. You can't change the activities without approval and say, look, I already changed it.
Yeah.
Tough shit. And you know, a major change was to go from what were supposed to be limited in-person solicitations to mass mailings. They changed that, didn't get approval in advance. They then said we're going to be in Little Rock only, and then they said, you know what, we're going to be in Hot Springs. We're going to buy Clinton family property with foundation money in 2000.
That's obviously crazy.
Right, and then in 2001, because you know, guys, you know, he's got to coin it, man. We're going to move the office to New York. I'm not going back to that shithole. I'm going, I'm going to come to New York and turn it into it. Shaitholi.
Wait, let's enjoy this most current art project. Let's start here and go up this way. Keep going, Charles. We'll just let everybody enjoy the art while we talk.
Yeah. Who did this? Mick E. Mouse?
Well, I don't know. The hand looks a bit like Mickey Mouse. It's a stretched out.
It says
Santi Flores. Here is depicted to the people of the Garment District, and by extension all New Yorkers. Oh,
Spanish.
Here is what this is called. Like present. Raise your hand.
The Garment District Alliance.
It's always an alliance, these things.
Is it part of the Clinton Foundation?
It's got to be something, but here, let's look
stay
at
in the shade, though. Or at least.
Yeah.
It's amazing, the difference.
They're all the same, though.
2022. I'm sure this will stay intact. Nobody will come with a truck.
It looks like it's inflatable. No, it's metal. I guess you're probably not supposed to touch it.
Well, I mean, I'm amazed that somebody wouldn't, in the middle of the night, just come with a truck and say, thanks for the candela.
Well, I mean, people would know.
Not at 2 a.m.
I mean, but when you tried to sell it, they'd be like, hey, wait a minute.
Who said anything about selling it?
They just put it in your house.
So I need some OT.
So here's a new weed store, Charles.
Let's stay in the...
Yeah. So, all right, so they're changing all these things.
So they're doing this international work, and it's a completely bogus argument. And the one part of the Caribbean, or I suppose there may be more than one, but the one that's big and very poor is Haiti.
Ah, right.
And they don't immediately go to Haiti, but they get there, I think, by 2003. And of course, don't explain how they're operating in a lawless country. You know, are they showing up with bags of cash? They claim they don't have a bank account there. You know, how do you actually perform work in Haiti involving millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars with no bank account? You know?
Cash is king.
Well, I mean, $100,000 of cash is, you know, you become a pretty obvious target.
Right.
And that's just 100. Right. So there he meets up in Haiti in this early period. He meets up with Paul Farmer, who's since died.
Oh, just recently.
Yeah.
And pretty young.
In his early 60s. And I drifted away and didn't finish the suspicious deaths.
Right.
Because it's not just Glasgow. It's Middleton, Glasgow, Epstein,
That woman.
Jean-Luc Revel. All these people are dropping like flies around the project, and so far the only person being disciplined,
It's just like a random dog walking around.
the only person being disciplined for Epstein Island is Ghislaine Maxwell. How come none of the, none
Well,
of the,
what about Nygaard? There he is.
yeah, none of the,
He's going to trial.
none of the Williams, I mean the Bills, are
Right.
being, like Johns, are
What's
being
with the sailors? These are the second and third
Memorial
sailors.
Day.
All right.
I imagine there's a.
This Joe's is a huge line.
Yeah, it's good. It's I think the same as
Well,
yours.
they are all the same. It's true, but that one's the
raised
biggest
their-
line I've seen.
They've raised their prices a lot.
You told me it's like $4 a
Just
slice.
go over here for a second.
Yeah, I mean, it is expensive. That's also probably just pure money laundering.
Yeah. Wow.
Good pizza.
Very busy now all of a sudden. So all this international work that the Clinton Foundation does, every time somebody arrives in a state like India or you name it, in Africa, and you're conducting charitable work, what you do typically is you make a representation under local law, and Indian law is actually strict on the books. And
But you pay them off and do whatever you
well,
want.
not as the former president of the United States, you don't. And it's, if they want to make an issue about some transgression of yours, it's not pleasant.
You know what? Somebody I know got arrested in India. He got off the plane to go to somebody's wedding. This was a fancy LA friend of mine. Got off the plane to go to this wedding that somebody was having in India. And he had like I forget the name of the company, some kind of satellite phone that you could use anywhere in the world.
Right.
And they arrested him for having that because it's illegal in India.
Yeah. Well,
And he was in jail for like weeks.
Yeah, you have to know the law. But
It's a little surprising that they wouldn't just confiscate that.
again, it's not how they roll.
Somebody's yelling here. What's going on?
The preacher. How come preachers don't have the low level on their preaching? Why do we wait till what? Let's wait here.
He's less likely to attack us, though.
I'm just saying it's so loud.
It is loud. He's going to have a sore throat.
But they'll monetize the Bible. Okay, now we can go.
We got a construction project going on here.
To give you hope.
Yeah.
We need hope in this world.
So the strange deaths.
Yeah. There's strange deaths everywhere. And it's a conspiracy theory to have any interest in it.
But let's talk about the antique rifle for a second. Is there something about antique firearms having less serial numbers on them, or not as easily tracked?
I don't know. I mean, I think, without revealing,
I don't know.
Any-
Dogecoin 2.0. The
any-
first one was so shitty.
work in progress, people, I've asked point blank people who have connections to Arkansas, why doesn't the Arkansas Attorney General, who's a Republican woman, why can't she stand up to the Clintons? And the answer was, she has to get to work. From her house to the office and the roads, a flash flood, a rainstorm, a semi hits you. I mean,
That's just crazy. There's got to be somebody who can
and that's,
break the grip.
Well, that's really what happened back in '57. So, they passed the desegregation law. Orville Faubus says, fuck off, we're not going to, we're keeping our schools segregated. They send in the National Guard.
Right.
But that problem, it's, there's an attitude down there. The people who are the rich and powerful are super rich and powerful. Everybody else is not
Right.
wealthy and not all that well educated and dependent on the super rich. And U.S. Navy fleet band.
Yeah, what do they got in there? Government property in a big road case. It looks like musical instruments.
It is. It's a fleet band.
Huh. They should get a fleet enema. That's funny. It's not usually
It's busy now.
You don't see sailors as roadies usually.
Well, so here we are in Times Square the day before Memorial Day.
They're getting shook down by Minnie Mouse.
That's funny.
So what was the Navy doing?
They tend to send big ships into the harbor.
No, but I mean, this seems like a concert.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of branches of the military here in town for the weekend, and they're partying. And
This is probably going to monetize the video, which is a pain in the ass. Oh wait, look, this is Jolly Bee, Charles.
I know, Chicken Joy. You can cut the cost of your next wedding. You can serve it. Navy diver.
Oh, I guess they're recruiting people into the Navy.
See what that sign says?
I did, yeah.
This is kind of busy. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's busy. I mean, definitely the streets have been busier on the nice weather days. Holy cow. Pretty good Hulk costume.
That's the real Hulk.
Oh, of course. So I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and she was like, "Oh, no, that happened. It was on TV. Everybody saw it." And I was like, "Well, Star Wars was on TV. Does that mean that's real?"
Sorry.
I got a whole lot of stuff going on.
Didn't want him to fall on you.
Anyway, so strange deaths, antique shotgun, rifle. I mean,
right, and the books and records are a mess. And you know, actually, on April 20th, 2015, when I wrote the first Foundation report, published it, I asked a series of questions, and one of them was, how certain are we that any changes allegedly made by the Clinton Foundation in its corporate form were done lawfully at the time? And I'm certain none of the changes were lawfully made at the time, meaning that there is no organization, meaning that the big questions here should be government by government, donor government by donor government, foundation by foundation who gave money to this. Where did the money really go? Show me the wire instructions. Show me the contract. Show me the diligence you did on this. Who did you hire? You know, what proof do you have that you did any of this carefully, or were you just reckless? And if you're reckless, then you have big trouble as a donor.
okay, well, all right. Well, Charles, I have to say, of all the times we've spent walking around in Times Square, this is the closest to back to pre-pandemic level that we've seen yet.
And we know what's going to happen.
What?
By Tuesday, it's going to be cases are skyrocketing.
Well, they're already saying that.
Right, but I'm just saying, look at this. I mean, it's hot. You know, this Omicron thing, if it's still around, is very, very supposedly contagious. People aren't social distancing.
Well, I'm not worried. Here's a guy with the Ukraine flag.
Maybe we go across Little Brazil, get out of here. We haven't done Little Brazil yet, I don't think.
Well, but this is for people, this is what Times Square is normally like.
Yeah, you contrast it to what it was like in April 2020.
Even 2 weeks ago.
Or April 2020 when we walked in the street and there was nobody.
It's not even room for cops to text here. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly caused by just, you know, dopes standing still in front of doors.
Trying to get into Disney.
Are you holding on to Shannon?
Yeah, I mean, it's just people standing still.
Go to Disney store?
Is it Disney?
Rip off.
So it's sort of quiet. Oh, wait, there's George Floyd over there. Oh, right. Wait a minute. May 25th, I think, was when he was killed. Or what was the day? Something like that.
They call him St. George of Fentanyl. So yeah, you want to go down?
Sure.
I just want to get out of it.
Yeah, it's pretty crowded. Not conducive to conversation.
So this is a section in here, the street, 46th Street, where it's all, there are a lot of, it used to be a lot of Brazilian restaurants.
Yeah. Well, that way they still have them.
Used to be this way too.
Yeah, there's more back that way though, I think. Platforma and then a couple, there's smaller ones over here.
Right. So we should talk a little bit about the Sedition edition of the movie.
Right, Durham. But
Yeah.
that's all this stuff.
Yeah. So if people want to understand, and we've been saying this, I mean, they take the videos down relentlessly, but there's a pretty good record in the public domain. If you want to understand why the Clintons are so sloppy in all of their work, it's because they've been using false front charities and fake corporations to scam money from people who want to purchase influence from them, either directly or indirectly.
And other people see it and say, well, we should do this too. And if we know about it, we've
Right.
got some leeway to do something.
Right, and you look, for example, at, I'm now going to call him Scambama. I mean, you have Barack Obama's reminding us that the most important challenge the world faces right now is climate change. Meanwhile, he's
I
got
thought it
four-
was domestic
well,
white
he has,
terrorists.
He has 4 mansions.
Right.
He has a gigantic estate on Martha's Vineyard. He has a gigantic estate beachfront in Hawaii. He has a big place in Washington, D.C., a big place in Chicago. And there's 2 of them now. The kids are off.
Right. It's crazy.
You know, and we're supposed to reduce our carbon footprint. The guy only flies private, paid for by his foundation, most likely.
Terrible.
Gets all kinds of off-market deals. And then when he has to work,
What the hell is going on right here?
people are partying.
No.
Pictures being taken.
Oh, right. Okay.
Okay, pause. I need lip gloss. Wow, we have. Beautiful, pretty
Hi.
class, but hello.
Easy, Jason. Down, boy.
Just being polite, Charles.
Yeah, right. So so you have the example set by these charity scam artists, and we shouldn't fall for the limited hangout of oh well, Sussman did this tactic wrong. The question is, why would Sussman be doing all this?
Right.
It's not his idea.
Yeah,
They do
it's so outside the realm of anything legitimate.
Who's the client? And who's paying for all this? And what are they trying to accomplish? Is it merely to make sure that secrets related to the Clintons don't come out? Or are there Biden secrets that people don't want?
Oh, it's integrated
and
with
Obama,
so many things.
And Bush.
Absolutely.
And that-
Iran-Contras at the top of the list.
Absolutely. And actually also, the sellout to China. Peter Schweitzer.
But that's why I'm saying that can't possibly be that William Barr would have brought in someone who's going to unravel all that, because it would take him down.
It could be, Jason. But the point is that sometimes when you go down a path like this, there's a revelation and you let the genie out of the bottle and it can't go back in.
Maybe. I mean, Charles, I rarely have anything good to say about William Barr, but I appreciate and respect his intelligence and strategic. He's a tough opponent.
Yeah. But for him to say that Hillary Clinton not may be guilty, is guilty of a seditious conspiracy, that's...
Well, I don't think you told everybody about that, and a lot of people probably didn't see that.
Yeah, so he did an interview with Glenn Beck that was aired on Saturday. I haven't watched it yet, but there's articles about it. And he accuses Hillary Clinton of being guilty of leading a seditious conspiracy against Trump in the United States. And I mean, I would argue she's been doing that since college.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's, when you see the same sort of trick, when you identify the trick lying under oath, and you see it being used again and again and again, and the same people
It's
are
a
around
modus
it.
operandi.
Right, it's just, you get to a place, and what you do is you want to involve people in the conspiracy. You find somebody who wants to get dirty, and you let, like Sarkozy, for example, he's just a minister, now he wants to be the leader of France.
Right.
And you let it be known, look, if you want some help, we'll route a piece of the money that France sends us. You're just taking it from tourists off the train and plane tickets. It's not going to hurt. Nobody will know.
Right.
And we'll route a piece of that to you, and we know how to do that in ways that nobody will figure it out, and you'll be president. You can, let your...
See, I think you've just hit it right there. It's not that they want to be dirty. It's that they want something so badly, and they're willing to be compromised. I believe it's possible that a lot of people who get involved in this type of thing don't necessarily understand the degree to which they're going to be compromised by doing this. They're almost even maybe tricked into it, but once they're in it, they're like, well, all right, I'm president, I'll go with this.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, by the way, now you're indicted for the Gaddafi stuff, and then they put pressure on you like that.
There you go, yeah. So, is this where Chaz Palminteri's
Yeah.
place is? Yeah. I always
Didn't he
see-
just die or something?
No, that was another guy. Did Chaz Palminteri
Well,
die too?
Ray Liotta just died, but maybe not. I'm thinking of somebody else.
If the best you could do is putting your restaurant into a Hilton Garden Inn,
Well, I don't know. The Hilton in New York.
right?
Here.
You want $1.50 oyster?
Not at all. It's like discount parachutes.
It's cheaper than what is that Nutrisystem?
Well, I just don't want it.
Well, it's a way to lose weight. Take one of them and you'll lose 5 pounds quickly.
No, he's still alive. He's 70.
Right. It's a lot quieter over here, thankfully.
Yes, it is. He's a good actor. He hasn't been in too many movies, but
Who now?
Chaz Palminteri.
So should we go up 5th and to Trump
Whatever.
Tower, or
Sure, whatever you want to do.
Go back down? Or do
Oh
you
yeah,
want to
and
just
then
go
here's
back?
Emporium, Brazil.
Right.
Well, actually, yeah, we could just head down. It's pretty hot.
Okay. So,
What do you expect this week from the Durham? I mean, this is
Well-
still going, right?
yeah, I started to say that I hope Durham understands that the reason people were jumping through hoops to break all these rules and make sure that Trump wouldn't get elected and that wouldn't succeed once he was elected
Yeah.
is that the situation in the Clinton Foundation by December of 2008 or late November 2008 was so diabolically awful. And the Clintons had to make sure that they did their level best to try to cover it up. So that's why Hillary, I think, was thrust upon Barack Obama. I am not buying the idea that Barack Obama, the proud and I would argue spiteful man that he is, would say, "Oh yeah, you can have Sid Blumenthal make fun of me and Michelle. You can have
Right.
the New Yorker cover, dressing us up as terrorists with machine guns in the White House, in the Oval Office." And that's just a stunt. I'll let bygones be bygones.
All
I
in
don't
good
believe
fun,
that.
right.
Not with Barack Obama.
Well, then he said Sidney Blumenthal's not allowed in the White House, I thought.
Right, I wouldn't let Hillary Clinton in the White House. How did Sidney Blumenthal didn't come up with that idea himself.
Well, but there's good evidence that Barack Obama did not want Hillary Clinton. I mean, that's what I mean. I think the whole Obama-Clinton relationship is a power struggle, and they smile and hug each other
Right, they hate
on
each
camera,
other.
but they hate each other.
No, I've been told by quite a senior person, Democrat, that is absolutely the case. They loathe one another.
Yeah.
But the problem is that when Barack was running, he needed the Clinton money machine
But I think he was forced to take her as...
and Holder and all these other people. It wasn't just her. And don't forget that he was under FBI investigation.
Obama?
Yeah.
For what?
Well, the campaign. Well, there was one investigation over how he and the team around him might have been using their influence to sell his senacy. His senacy. And then there was another investigation into which Bush cut off into the new Black Panther voter intimidation deal in Philadelphia, where they had these thugs in front of the polling places threatening white voters. And so there were, Obama had to be interviewed by the FBI between the election and the inauguration, and
Wow.
so did Jared, and there must be records of that. What was he asked? What did he say?
Was it Comey running it then?
No, Mueller was head of the FBI.
Mueller still, right. When did he leave? So he was 2001 to 2011.
No, 13.
Oh, right. No, maybe even 15, because he was like 14 years in there.
15? I thought it was 13. It was 13.
But he was the second longest tenure of anybody.
That's a great list to be on. J. Edgar
Well, after
Hoover's
J.
number
Edgar
one.
Hoover. I mean, Louis Freeh's no prize either.
None of those people are
No.
Chris Wray, whatever. But
I-
just
Yeah.
for a second on this, so he wins, and the Clinton Foundation, I mean, honestly, at this point, they have no bylaws. They've stolen tons of money. Donors are complaining. They have this conference organized for December 1st, 2nd in Hong Kong, 2008, where all these Asian grifters are there with Bill Clinton on Chinese territory, and Bill's selling access probably one way or another to the incoming Secretary of State.
Visiting Charlie Tree.
Yeah, exactly, and that's okay. And the books and records of the Clinton Foundation are just a disaster at this point. I mean, they're mathematically incorrect. They've hidden 70 plus million of known fraud. They have, multiple subsidiaries that are collected funds.
Known fraud, unknown fraud, and unknown fraud.
Right, exactly. Tip Parrott. What was that guy's name?
Wasn't it?
Rumsfeld.
Yeah.
Known knowns, the knowns, the known unknowns.
He was a very good speaker, and he's a sinister bastard.
Right.
But he's good at making you feel confident in the United States military when he's on TV.
He was good then. Not so good at it now.
Well, he's underground now.
I'm saying he's still dead.
Yeah.
I
He
see
lives
the
pretty
shop.
long.
Retail is really hot now.
I know everything we've been seeing is just a total all stolen goods.
Well, I'm sure if you ask for proof of provenance here, they
Certificate of authenticity comes with these.
warranty.
Louis
If you pay a
Vuitton.
little extra, you get a 5-year warranty for those sunglasses.
I don't know.
So they had to try to cover all this stuff up. And when you look in the 43 or 44 part Hillary R. Clinton FBI vault, parts 1 and 2, part 1 I think recounts, is a summary with a lot of redactions. All the important footnotes
Yeah.
are redacted. But it explains what email systems they were using well before 2008. And somebody has a record of those emails somewhere.
AOL.
And, well, I think they're probably Yahoo. And
They're definitely Yahoos.
Yeah, but somebody
Look at
has...
this truck driving right through the... Hang on, buddy! Wait! Fuck you, asshole. Go back to New Jersey.
Did he get out of the truck?
No, he didn't get in. I'm going to get out of the truck.
And here's the New York Public Library. Nobody comes here for books anymore.
Well,
Do they have a weed truck near here?
yeah, do they?
I don't know. Not in the library.
I mean, Charles, what is up with the attitude of somebody trying to run you over with their car and then saying, fuck you?
I can't explain. I mean, as I said, I start by saying there's a bottom half of every class, and that person would be lucky to be in the bottom half of the bottom half.
So here's what we've seen with this shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Cops all over the country are excellent at standing around and doing nothing while crimes are committed, including murder. So I might be getting on board with this defund the police movement if and only if it coincides with everyone being allowed to carry guns and everyone being able to conduct arrests and use deadly force when somebody threatens your life.
You want to live in, say, the Philippines? Because that's what you're talking about.
I don't know, they still have cops there.
Not too many honest ones.
Well, that's what we've got here too.
Well, at least cops aren't stopping your car and saying, you've got a $1,000 problem.
That happened to me one time.
Did it really? Where?
They stopped my car. This was back when I was married to Tatiana. I had an Acura at the time. I was making a lot of money, and we were just pulling out of the garage. And there was, they used to use these undercover taxis. You'd be able to tell it was the cops because they had I can't remember if it was a W or an X in the call letters, but that was a cop car. So there's a taxi behind me, and I'm hearing like whoop whoop, and I'm driving, and I look in the rearview mirror, and it's a taxi. So I keep driving up, I guess 8th Ave.
Here in
And
New
we're
York.
stopped at a light. Yeah, we pulled right out of the garage in my apartment building, same apartment building. And so we're stopped at a light, and somebody banging on the window, and I roll it down, and he's a plainclothes guy, and I say, what's up? He says, how come you didn't stop your car? You didn't hear my siren? I said, you're driving a taxi. I didn't see a cop car. Are you a cop? And he pulls out a badge. So I was like, all right, well, I don't stop for taxis. So he's like, give me your driver's license and registration. I was like, what the hell am I doing wrong? And he's like, oh, well, you didn't stop at the whatever. I was like, yes, I did. He said, give me your driver's license and registration. So he goes back to his car, and Tatiana's like, what are you doing? That's the police. They're going to put you in jail. I said, no, this is America. They can't put me in jail for nothing.
Right.
And she's like, you're crazy. They can.
She's right.
She was right, but anyway, the guy comes back, and he's like, oh, well, you know, we ran the VIN number, and the vehicle came back as a partially stolen car. I was like, what the hell are you talking about, a partially stolen car? He's like, I mean, the partial VIN number came back. I said, listen to me. Why don't you figure out what the hell you're talking about and give me my driver's license back and get out of here and stop harassing me? And it was the Jedi mind trick. He gave me the license and I left.
Yeah.
It's risky, but Jedi mind trick,
Yeah.
right? Did not work on the child. Amazing. Smart kid. He's Jabba the Hutt in kid form.
On Slim Fast.
Well, because the Jedi mind trick didn't work on
No,
Jabba
this
the
guy,
Hutt.
yeah. The
Yeah.
little kid was skinny.
No, I know. Anyway,
So Durham, we'll see if he and his team have been following to its logical conclusion.
boy, this is
Fixing this up, we have another vacant office building here in New York.
right. It's just all, and then, I mean, see, so here, how come Louis Vuitton doesn't contact the NYPD and say, hey, come arrest these guys for selling illegal copies of our stuff?
I mean, again, I think there's just a recognition that the city is irretrievably broken. And I mean, you
That
got
might be right.
Eric Adams makes Joe Biden look smart.
Yes, he does. I did an episode about that has been expunged.
Is that right?
From YouTube. Well, I mean, you know, we've got these malicious assholes who sit around in RVs living out their miserable lives all day. You know what I wanted to tell you, Charles? There are so many people now who have emailed me and DM'd and everything, and they say, you know what, this show, Sunday with Charles, is their favorite show all week. They don't watch TV anymore. They just enjoy the information that you
Thanks for
share.
watching.
Yes, thank you, everyone. The banter that we have and walking around seeing New York City, and they just love the show. And many people, like maybe a dozen or more, have sent me email messages along the lines of, you know, this level-headed analysis that we've been offering and the calm approach to everything has helped them get through this crisis. And they thank me for helping them maintain their calm. And, you know, it makes me feel so good to know that something that I could do or something that I could make would make somebody else happy like that. It's almost a feeling that sometimes people come and tell me, oh, that was so, you know, and it's not like I feel great about me. The fact that you can make somebody else happy like that is almost like an honor. And the knowledge that there is a sick, psychotic moron sitting around trying to put nothing but misery into the world, to destroy things that we're making, to take those things away from people that make them happy. He's really a sick, disturbed individual. And I just don't know what else to say about it. It's quite troubling to know that somebody spends so much time, almost every day for the past 5 years, trying to destroy this body of work.
Sucks. Well,
People can still get it on Odyssey and on Rumble.
well, and you bring up Biden, of course. I mean, this last, if you think about, you know, maybe it was 4 weeks ago, whenever they started this campaign, this is, you know, to a person, this is the strongest economic recovery in the history
That's
of America.
crazy.
You know, when all you're talking about is some of the people who had to go home because of the pandemic, some of those people come back to work. And now increasingly, many of them are being laid off again or fired.
Well, there's other companies that are saying they can't find anybody to hire.
Well, it depends the skill. I mean, if you need somebody to be a moron,
There's a lot of availability in that
Excuse me.
field. Now, Charles, did you happen to see Trump's Wyoming speech? It was good. I mean, he's still funny. I don't know. I'm concerned about him becoming president again, primarily because he always has Mike Lindell there with him.
oh, was he there again in Wyoming?
He was there again. And he always says, oh, he's the best advertising buyer in the country. Mike Lindell, stand up. And Lindell stands up. So the thing that I'm confused about is, remember in the last days of the Trump presidency, he had that weird meeting with the Ginger Frankenstein and Sidney Powell, and Mark Meadows said these people are nuts and basically sent them out of there. And then Trump sort of distanced himself from the whole, all that business that those guys were talking about. But now he's hanging out with Mike Lindell, who was like the money behind all of that nonsense they were talking about.
Right.
What the hell is up?
I can't explain it, but you just do a simple comparison then and now, and you ask yourself, where were we in the middle of the pandemic in November? Careful.
Don't get too close to the vapes.
November 2020. Oh, I guess he's turning. So November 2020, you look at this, the run rate of the economy, you look at the employment levels, you look at interest rates, you look at gas prices, you look at all sorts of things. Or go back before the pandemic if you want. Now look at it. We've got terrible. Forgetting the economy for a second, we have a pitched battle going on inside China between Xi and Li. Li is this guy who doesn't buy, powerful guy who doesn't, I forget his title, who doesn't buy this complete lockdown and COVID, whereas Xi has said, nope, that's what we're doing, and I'm the leader of the country.
This sounds like a new Disney cartoon, Xi and Li.
Xi versus Li.
Yeah.
So, and that's a problem, and the Chinese are getting ever more aggressive, while we're getting aggressive.
Right.
In a Stoke war over there. We're sending all kinds of stuff into Russia. The official
Hang on. That's super loud. I just don't want people to miss what you're saying. Behold, Charles, the Empire State Building.
Right.
Man, we've been getting a lot of this. Why isn't he just going around him?
I don't know. He'll go. What's the point of the siren now?
It's deaf.
So,
Okay.
with regard to the war in Ukraine, the initial reports were that the Ukrainian brave fighting forces in Ukraine are decimating the Russians, and now the Times and Washington Post and others are saying actually that's not true, and the Ukrainians are being routed, and Russia does appear to be taking Donbass, and even what's his name, Zelensky last night
said Donbass has fallen. But here's the problem. They're now deciding on some plan, I forget the model, but some long-range rocket battery that could hit cities in Russia from Ukraine. And Russia said, if you do that, it'll be a serious escalation that will be met with immediate response.
Right, and I think what will happen is they will go after. They're going to go after NATO countries. They're going to go after Poland, maybe do something even against the UK, and maybe flatten our embassy in Kiev or something like that.
I think something like that, more metered, destroy embassies of those countries within Ukraine. I think extending the war to another country would be...
Well, that is an act of war.
Well, so is putting long-range rockets there.
I know. And of course, the challenge becomes in these type of situations, as you see, the hunt for Red October and stuff like that, you get commanders in submarines and other people with access to military weapons in the field, and they get a false report that Russia's doing X, Y, or Z. In the heat of the moment,
something happens. There's a risk of that happening even when there's not a war going on.
Especially if Biden's involved.
Well, I'm saying in the 80s, it came out much later. Somebody I know worked on a documentary that won all kinds of awards called The Man Who Saved the World, about a Russian general who there was some sort of, it was determined to have been caused by some sort of electromagnetic radiation anomaly.
Right.
But Russia got this radar reading that indicated that there was a launch from the United States, and there was like multiple failures where the last line that Russia had was like some World War II era radar thing that was like so close to where they were that if this thing picked up the missile, it would be like too late for a response. but something about the old technology was like more, less susceptible to this interference or whatever. And the guy was like, everybody was all over him to try to launch, and he made them stop and stopped a world war.
Yeah.
That dude's nuts.
No. Careful.
Yeah. But that's the movie
bonkers,
called
yeah.
The Man Who Saved the World.
Yeah. So you have
Let's go this way. That guy was nuts.
you have the Asian situation is precarious. The Ukraine-Russia situation is precarious. Western Europe, the economic situation is precarious
The
because.
United States, the
Well,
economic
I just want to
situation.
go. We'll get to the United States in a second, if you don't mind. The Western Europe, it's not stupid. I mean, you don't have to be a Harvard graduate, business graduate, or experienced business person to understand that if you're getting 90% of your energy in a country that's hot in the summer and cold in the winter from one hostile country,
That's stupid.
you've got a problem.
Yeah.
Under the Trump years, Europeans would not listen to Trump
They
and
laughed.
other people saying, they laughed at him, yeah. And so now you have countries across Europe. I don't think there is a country in Europe that has a robust population growth rate, when you consider total population, and that doesn't have a serious problem with too many older people
Right.
and not enough young people. So
Right.
when you get into that position where the number of pensioners are a
Yeah,
very big
healthcare.
percentage of the people who are in the workforce, how are you going to shoulder the social costs of the retirees?
Right.
And so Europe is a failed model, confronting, before energy prices, massive structural problems. It's addicted to not socialism, stupidism.
Yeah.
I mean, these one anal Schwab after another getting up in a ridiculous outfit, saying, what we need to do is 10 years from now, nobody's going to have anything, and you're going to eat bugs, but at least
Yeah.
we'll all be happy.
Are they
mean-
done with that Davos meeting?
No, they may be done with that meeting, but I think they begin each meeting with an invocation to Jerry Lewis. I mean, it's just
What?
who's in his role as being a stupid idiot. I mean, it's
Oh.
just
They do love Jerry Lewis in France. I
they gave him a Palme d'Or.
met him in Cannes.
Oh, did you really?
Like right before he died, he had a pretty small
He said,
room.
before I die, I've got to meet Jason Goodman.
No, he just was given a little kind of like meeting in this room, and I just met him for 2 seconds.
I mean, with Dean Martin, he was hilarious.
Dean Martin was already dead.
I'm just saying, in the movies,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
when
he
they're the
was.
road movies, road trip movies, whatever you call them.
They made a 3D movie, and it was great.
Really?
It was money from home. I mean, the movie wasn't great, but the 3D was great.
He's not my idea, what I imagine a French person would say is
It's
very
weird. I
elegant
agree.
and-
I don't understand why the French like Jerry Lewis so much.
Right.
And how come they don't like the Three Stooges? Oh, that's stupid.
It's just stupid.
Here's more army. What the hell is going
Well,
on
they're
there?
all here for the
But
Memorial
they're
Day
working.
parades.
Huh.
Should
Yeah, I
we go
don't
down
know.
7th or?
Sure. Hey, look at that Japanese specialty department store. I don't know if I've noticed that before. It's the largest in North America, according to that.
It's still pretty small.
Well, that's a qualifying statement, Charles. It's the largest in that building.
Yeah, that's right. That's in business, you always see in a 10K or an annual report, everybody. Joe Blow's Sandwich Shop is the leading sandwich shop in North America. I mean, what do you mean by that?
Right.
You're on a line of sandwich shops.
There's one, I can't remember if this is in New York or LA, but it says probably the best hamburger in the city.
That's Joe Biden's. That's a guy who's like, he's 100 spots ahead of Joe Biden in Syracuse Law School. Did you see that thing about him lying again about?
When he graduated or something with 1964. And
Well, he got up. I don't know that we've covered this yet. I think you and I were talking about it, but we didn't cover it on air. He goes to the Naval Academy graduation. Now, I'm not going to say how, but I was connected to people who were pretty well connected at Annapolis, and the Navy there are people who are Navy people, people Army people, Marines, whatever. But the Navy, diehard Navy people, take Annapolis very seriously, as you should.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an ancient tradition of service. You don't just you can't just test well to get in. You have You have to get, I think, nominated by either a member of Congress or a senator, and and people. They take it very seriously. In part because
it's like the Harvard of military stuff, right?
Well, no, I mean it's in its own place, and what you have to do is you go through the school, and it's not easy to graduate, and then you have to serve for 5 years. I mean,
so he gets up there and he's like, show of hands, how many people here get kicked out for cocaine? Nobody? Okay.
That's unheard. But so he gets up there and he just malapropism after malaprop. He says, just think about it. 4 days ago you got here and now you're graduating.
Oh God,
years, years. I had a place here, but you had a few people on your team, Roger Staubach, and I wanted to play football, and this is 1965. Joe, you graduated from the University of Delaware in 1965. You couldn't have been considering going to get your bachelor degree in 1965.
But then he also said he was on some rugby team, and all these rugby associations were like, wait a minute.
No rugby team. And he said, it's a pity you've been on these Zoom calls instead of being in class.
Zoom.
He said something about his son had a bronze spar, not a bronze star. I mean, just one or two of them. And you think back to Trump at the West Point graduation,
where he walked slowly down the stairs.
Well, it's very hot. He was wearing expensive shoes with leather
Slippery.
soles. It is actually some of the worst falls that I've had in my life to date.
He could join the NYPD.
Both of them. But some of the worst falls are when you're just
fancy shoes, just walking.
Well, when you're standing on, you don't expect it, so you can't put your arms up to get, and you fall hard. Just even a short distance onto a hard surface.
They were saying that indicated that Trump was like, they need the 25th Amendment because he walked carefully down the stairs.
Whereas,
here, Joe Biden can't get a sentence out without sounding like an idiot, and they're like, that's totally fine.
Yeah, or he falls up the airplane.
Right.
I mean, how do you fall up
and then get up and fall again?
3 times he fell, going up. I mean, it's easier to go up than down.
Failing upward, that's Joe Biden's specialty.
So I shudder to think what may have happened down at this Texas thing. I actually think it is beyond disgusting the way Biden and Harris and these other Democrats are using the worst day in that small town of 12,000 or whatever it is, this recent history.
To politicize it.
To shamelessly politicize a gory incident before we even have
the full
25.
details,
No, not the full. 25% we don't have yet.
Yeah.
And he's rushing down there. It's 80 miles from the border. He's yet to go to the border. And really, I mean, it's to the point where if you and I are noticing, and our audience has known it for a while, you got to believe there's one competent intelligence service around the world that is looking at Joe Biden and saying, we have to say that
full dunce.
We're more worried about what this guy may decide to do
to any other country. He's a danger.
Right. And and I believe, reading over decades, I think we have, and in theory, in our intelligence services, we only have 17 of them supposedly.
That's the ones they tell you about.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we have people who are, trained in psychology, psychiatry, whatever. They're watching tapes of rivals and enemies and putting dossiers together about them and trying to figure out,
Well, they think grabbing a table means Putin has cancer, so I don't know how accurate they are.
I mean, I think those are the pukes who, pundits who've gotten everything wrong about everything. I'm talking about, somebody, he's dead obviously, but somebody like Charles Krauthammer, who's trained, a medical doctor in psychiatry. And I know you can't diagnose somebody without meeting with them. I know you got to have their record, but you can have points of view. And what we see, I mean, Biden also said, I might have been at the University of Delaware, I think he said that Trump supporters killed people
Police
on January.
officers, yeah.
That's just not true.
Correct.
And he's already gotten multiple Pinocchios for that. I mean, it's not like, but he just goes back to his old talking points and continues repeating lie after lie after lie.
Non sequitur, Charles. Check it out. George Carlin special coming.
Oh, that's good.
But it's got to be old, right? A new 2-part documentary. Oh, that'll
He was
be
funny.
interesting.
He was
Yeah.
definitely funny.
Genius, one of the all-time greats.
And a hard worker.
He was doing comedy up until the very end.
Well, I remember I was seated next to him on the Starflight out there in LA, and he didn't talk
Oh, you
to
told
anybody.
me he had scripts and
He was
everything.
just going through, in the days in the 80s, he's going through script after script, taking notes, highlighting this and that, just focused.
That's good.
I think to do that right, I mean, you've done stand-up
Absolutely.
comedy.
There are people who treat being an actor like a business, and then there are good-looking idiots who show up and can talk.
Right.
And they'll be like, I'm going to be in the trailer playing PlayStation until you're ready. It's like, okay. I think the worst guy I ever worked with, what was his name? Joel David something? He had just come off of Avatar, and he plays the nerd in Avatar. This guy was like poison on set. Kevin Sorbo hated him because Sorbo is one of these very professional guys. Always knew the lines. The director of this movie was terrible, but if the director ever gave him direction, he would do it again with that difference. And he did stunts. Kevin Sorbo, whatever anybody thinks about him, extremely professional actor. Well, towards me. Some of the girls might not agree with that, but this guy was terrible.
Kind of
Joel
like AOC.
David.
She's a great actor.
Oh God, I saw a TikTok she was doing where now, she's in her groove. So she was like, hey, college loan repayment, where are you at? Where's it at? And she's like doing these cuts, and she's like, she's a congressional social media influencer. It's a new breed of thing that we've never had before her.
It's idiotic. I mean, and the idea that every student should get $10,000 worth of student debt repay. What if you've already paid off your student debt?
Well, how about take it from the college, right? What about those people who paid it off? They get nothing because they're the ones who are actually working.
It's called moral hazard as well, because you do it this time, and then there's a precedent set, and 5 years from now it'll be
What about my
20,000.
house? I don't want to pay that loan either.
Right.
My car, well, give me that.
Right. What about my taxes? I don't want to pay them.
Give it back.
Yeah. So, and then they had some funny, actually on my Twitter feed, there was a lot of funny people, and somebody put up this picture of, it's obviously fake, of AOC with some interviewer, and AOC is very arrogantly saying, Roe v. Wade.
Oh yeah.
Those are the two choices that Mexicans have to get into the United States because of Trump, or something like that. Ugh. And
Yeah.
what I really don't appreciate, having grown up around people who are very smart and very modest, I really don't like bumbling idiots. Let's wait for that to go.
With their dumb ideas.
Who are arrogant,
Yeah.
get up into your face and yelling and screaming, "You're the fool!" Because they want to spend $100 trillion to fight climate change because all of our big spending plans have worked so well. And by the way, how did you get that Tesla and the 2 houses
Right.
and the fancy clothes and all that on your congressional salary?
And also, whenever you watch a TED Talk from some scientist who actually knows about this, or listen to somebody like Elon Musk who has based a business on this and made a couple bucks at it, they say, look, even though we want this, it can't be done until X, Y, and Z happen, and so we should do this. And they're like, forget that. We're not going to listen to people who know what they're talking about.
Right, and
That would
again,
be stupid.
I mean, people who are expert at opening their pie holes and spewing garbage are not people who should be setting. I don't believe in industrial policy. I think the free marketplace or a marketplace of competitive ideas,
fix things, yeah.
that tends to work best.
Elizabeth Warren doesn't agree, Charles. She thinks if she doesn't like the price that you set, she should have the right to said it. I forget where I was watching this, but they were talking about how it's basically straight out of Marxism.
I've always wanted to be a Seminole. I mean, or
No, but I mean, they're
Cherokee.
trying to make the United States into a planned economy.
Well, again, enough of that. Go home. And actually, on a more sober and somber note, there were reports that some left-wing charities formally advocating that the neighborhood surrounding the Supreme Court be cordoned off.
For what?
So that the Supreme Court justices can't get into the courtroom,
What?
and that physical violence
Isn't
against that's
Physical violence against the judges?
Yeah, and they want to blow up the building.
Why don't they just start arresting anybody who says that? I mean, I put one video about Nina Jankowicz on, and every social media thing goes away within a day. Then they've got guys posting pictures of them basically jerking off with guns and messages that they're going to blow up the school, and they don't do anything.
Again, it's outrageous. But I hope that we'll make some good progress. We've got we'll see what happens with Durham. It could be a big yawn. The jury, you're dealing with left-leaning and Clinton-loving and Obama-loving jurors, so they may just say the big F you. We said we'd be impartial, but we're not going to be. We're the jury. F off.
Yeah.
So we could have a result like that. I don't think it's going to be your 12 Angry Men movie. It's going to be intensely political, and then we have the spectacle of the Supreme Court decision on Roe v. Wade. Will it come down? When will it come down? We're in riot season, so this is.
It's riot season. You got a permit for that riot?
This is for 4 years between high
Duck
school.
season.
What?
Rabbit season.
Riot season.
Shoot me now.
Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And,
Right. Happy Memorial Day, everybody.
Right, and that's to honor. It's actually to honor our war dead and wounded. That's who you're supposed to be honoring. Of course, we value and prize the service of people in our armed services, but
The
you really
honorable
want to
ones.
remember. You want to remember many who've laid down their lives or had the balance of their lives painfully and irretrievably altered to the worse.
Yeah.
So,
It's a difficult moment, Charles, because I resent the people that send individuals with good intentions into quagmires to destroy their lives
right.
for their own personal benefit without ever telling the people who are making the sacrifice the truth. And it's kind of a sick feeling that...
Isn't Quagmire a character on Family Guy?
He is, yeah.
And in the White House?
Exactly. Well, with that, Charles, we're just about out of runway here.
All right.
I hope everybody enjoyed the show, except for one person watching for an RV. And people can still get the old episodes, Charles, on Rumble and Odyssey. And all of the sponsor exclusive content is still remaining there on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. So please join us over there, become a sponsor, have a great weekend, enjoy Memorial Day. Tomorrow everybody's off, right? Have a barbecue, have a good time. Thanks for watching.